Gender confusion, the fourth part of my story. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, willingly everybody is well. This part could be rather long, and I know that not everybody can stay for the whole thing, but this could be the longest video I ever make. Why should it be shorter just because, for whatever reason? So I'm going to fill in some of the gaps with the teenage years and the adult years with this portion of my story. And then I'm going to be talking about other things relating to the topic, which also could take a while. So if you have a snack, get a snack. If you have food, eat it. Because I'm going to be here for a while. It all begins in my teenage years, around 2000, 2001, mostly early 2001. The first, I guess, gender non-congruent thing I ever noticed about myself was when I was 15 and a half, so yeah, something like that. For whatever reason, non-sexually, I had a thing for, I guess, hosiery, for whatever reason. I had a desire to wear it. I never really told anybody my desire, and I didn't even get to until many years later. But nonetheless, for whatever reason, I felt drawn to it, and I didn't know why. It wasn't because it wasn't really hormones. It wasn't because I wanted to, have sex with anybody. Nothing like that. And so whenever there was like a character that wore hosiery in a game or something like that, I was playing Time Splitters, the first Time Splitters on PlayStation 2, the launch game. And I used to pick this character, the scientist character, because she wore it. And I would run around and do multiplayer and shoot people and other bots and whatever else. She was the character from the village level. But this was rather interesting. I don't really know how this developed. It's just, this happened right after my mother passed away, and maybe some of the thoughts creeped in even before she passed away. But that's just very interesting. That I was explaining earlier that I was babied as a child, but then once my mother passed away, then growth occurred. In some way or some shape. I didn't really think anything of it. I just didn't understand why I was this way. I used to go on the internet sometimes, and back then in 2001, it wasn't as developed as it is today. It was still in that 90s internet phase. Besides high-speed internet, high-speed, I guess DSL, what was considered high-speed internet at the time, was still rather new. That came out, a year prior or so? So it was still rather new. We still had dial-up at home. And I would go on the internet and see if we could find anybody that had similar, I guess, views to mine. I never really found anything, though. All I did is find sites of forums of people that were sexually attracted to different things. Which was fine and all, whatever. Didn't really have a problem with it. I was nervous about the whole thing because I was like, why would I have this desire? And so I began to think, certain thoughts that maybe I was sexually attracted, but I really wasn't. I knew I wasn't, but what did I know? It wasn't until late 2001 that I used to go on different chat room websites, regular ones, where you just play stupid flash games like pool with the mouse, or some other sports game they had, and I met somebody and finally told her my secret. Lo and behold, she didn't laugh at me, nothing like that. We actually became friends online for a couple of years. Then as 2002 rolled around, my desires began to evolve, and I wanted to start dressing up in other things. Again, I didn't really know why. I looked on the internet, but there was really nothing there that was substantial of any sort. Okay, so there were people like I was. I actually went into a cross-dressing chat room, and when I was 16, even though it was like 18 only, but the people I met there were nice, and no one really talked about anything too weird or too out there for me. And that's how that was. I eventually told my father's girlfriend at the time, Linda, who I talked about in the last live video, my desire. She thought it was funny, but she gave me some clothes that I could wear, and so that, I guess, cleansed my desire for the time being. As time went on around... Hello, Brandy! As time went on, I realized that clothes just weren't enough. Whatever it was, whatever desire it clenched at first, it began to wane over time, and I just wanted more. I finally realized this in March of 2003, when I was sitting in school, in whatever, just regular school clothes, a jeans and a t-shirt, and I was just looking over at a group of girls, and I just wanted to be like them. I kind of got down about it. Not really totally depressed, to make anybody, to alarm anybody or have them be concerned about me. But that's just what I wanted. I couldn't really control it. I mean, I wouldn't say that I exploded, but I kind of held it deep inside for a long time. Hello, Tina. I don't know what transpired, what connection went from, why did I go from cross-dressing to actually desiring to be a girl at that time. It just kind of happened for no reason that I can really see. At least that's what I thought. I went off to community college, and the same thing occurred. I saw a group of girls, and even in the science class, in a biology class that I was in, I was the only guy in a group of girls, and I wanted to be like them. And then in late 2003, early 2004, I found out how to develop a female voice. I tried it for about a week and a half. Didn't really get too far and gave up because I thought it was pointless. I could never become a real girl, so what's the point? I would do my voice practice at night so no one would ever know. My brother did find some files I recorded and eventually told me that I sounded okay. It was weird what I was doing, but I didn't sound that bad. Then I thought it would be okay if I could be genderless. This was around 2005, 2006. And I guess that worked for a while because I figured if I could just be genderless, because I wouldn't be that different as a girl anyway, so why should I bother trying to transition or doing anything? There's no big difference. So why should I care so much? Yeah, that worked for about a year, 2 years or so. Then in 2007, my feelings came roaring back once again. I became depressed about it a little bit. Not really a little bit, then that kind of grew. I got down about it. Started looking up stuff on YouTube. Made a friend on YouTube that I talked about this with. My biggest problem with that, I couldn't tell or perceive what changed in me. Why was I fine for 15 years and all of a sudden out of nowhere I started to change? Because most stories I read about trans people at the time, people that were transsexuals, I'll go into the difference between transgender and transsexual later in this video. But what I'm saying is, I couldn't perceive the difference, why I changed suddenly for no reason at all. Maybe somehow I became mentally ill, or maybe somewhere something put something inside me. I don't know how this would have occurred. Hello, Thais. But it did. Somehow, some shape, and And I didn't want to be a fake transsexual. I wanted to be the real one. And if I was going to transition, I wanted to know 100% this was right for me. And I wanted to make everything, I guess, logically line up. And they didn't. There was no reason for me to feel I was trans because as a child, I liked being a guy and everything else. So what changed? I couldn't figure that out. And that drove me into a downward spiral even more. I never did drugs. I never hurt myself physically. I just did what I was supposed to do, go to college, come home, and hang out on the internet and be, and wallow in my own crap. And my friend at the time that I met through YouTube helped me out quite a bit. And through school years, I've got a lot of urinary tract infections. I knew nothing about chakras at this time, but the orange chakra, the creative chakra, that also deals with the sex too. So it's no wonder why I got urinary tract infections over and over again, because I didn't like who I was. Not at this time. I was stressed out in school. Stressed out because I couldn't express my feelings and I didn't know why. I don't know why I was okay with being a guy for so many years and all of a sudden, that wasn't cool anymore and I had to be this girl thing, whatever that was. Since I was a fake transsexual, there's no way that I would make it. There's no way that I would look good or sound good or anything like that. And I used to make up stuff too. The only reason I want to do this is because I could never find a real girl myself. And therefore, instead of trying to find a lover, I therefore somehow introverted the whole thing and wanted to become a girl. Obviously, that was false. I thought of everything in the book to try to get me not to transition and to just blow the whole thing off, more or less. The feelings never went away. They always got stronger. They only got stronger through time. And there was nothing I could really do. In 2009, I started to develop a voice again. But the same thing. I did it for about a week and then stopped. I finally graduated college, university, like I said, in 2011. And then in May of 2011, that's when I finally made a stand. I didn't care if I was going to be 100% or not. I didn't care if I was going to be a quote-unquote fag or not. Although I probably shouldn't have used that word on a Facebook Live anyway. I didn't care. I was going to do this no matter what. Thinking if I couldn't physically pass well, then I would work on the voice. And the voice for a male to female transsexual is the hardest thing that anybody can work on. It seems easy and the techniques used aren't that difficult, but the muscles aren't used to being a certain way. And I'll show you in a second. Some of you may have heard my old voice because you can still do it. Hormones don't change your voice. Not for male to female transsexuals. It's a combination of resonance, pitch, melodic intonation, so on and so forth. Men speak around 110 to 120 hertz, and women speak around 200 to 230 hertz. So about pitch-wise an octave above men. So the pitch is higher, but not that much. Resonance is key because you can have two instruments, one with let's just say an acoustic instrument, one with a bigger circle than the other one. You both can play the same note, but one will have more of a boom to it because it's got a bigger circle. So if a male speaks at the female range without the female resonance, then he's going to sound like the stereotypical gay dude off of TV, or back then 90s television. That's why you kind of have to tighten up your throat a little bit. And breathing is key, just like when you're singing. And so I had the most difficult time with the resonance until I figured out how to do it. tighten up the base of your neck. I'll show you where I used to start from. So this is where I started from, right here. As you can see, there's not too much difference in sound. I mean, I guess there's not too much difference now because I've been using my female voice for 8-9 years. So the male voice sounds a bit different. But as you can see, it doesn't really sound too different. It sounds more or less the same. The pitch is different, but the resonance is also different. Men speak more from their chest, women speak more from their head, but the trick is everybody speaks from their chest to some degree. If you do a pure head voice, it's not going to have a lot of sound to it. So you're going to have to do in between. Whereas if you feel the neck here, when men speak, it vibrates at the lower part of the neck and up here where this finger is. Ha, ha, ha. Whereas when women speak, you only feel it in here. You don't feel it up here. Not too much. You feel it down here at the bottom. Ha, ha. And so I did a lot of notes and I did a lot of practicing with notes and singing and everything else. And before I found the resonance, I would go, "Hello, my name is Lauren Riley, and I'm 25 years of age. What a lovely afternoon. As you can see, it kind of has a male tint to it. Even though I can't do it exactly as good as I did it beforehand, because I know how to do everything the right way. But as you can see, if I don't tighten up my neck or my throat, this is kind of how it sounds. And yes, it's at the female pitch, but it has this kind of weirdness to it. You see how it sounds? I'll show you in simple sounds, and then you can see how it really is. Wait, let me do that one again. He, who. You see the difference? I mean, I can't, like I said, I can't do it as well as I did beforehand, but you hear the difference where there's like, it's still in the female pitch, but then there's that bass in the back there because you don't tighten up your throat enough. So what I did is, once I heard somebody else do it, I learned that I had to breathe through the mouth and the nose at the same time to really tighten it up. I mean, you don't have to. I found other ways to do it besides that technique. So when my voice was like this, I used to go. As you can see, when I breathe like that, the base of the neck at the bottom tightens up, and that's why you can see everything else here. I put the breath inside my head, and then the difficult part was I didn't know how to predict my voice out because I was afraid of dropping back to my male voice. So I would go, "Hello, my name is Lauren Riley, and I'm 25 because I didn't know how to control it to where I could relax my throat but still keep it tightened enough to speak loud like this, like I'm doing now. The difference between the male and female voice is that the female voice is behind the male voice. There's other differences too, like melodic intonation. A lot of men used to speak very monotone, going, "Hello, my name is Steve. How are you today?" Then again, this was back then in the 2004. I mean, when I first learned about everything, and then 2011. But as you are aware, not everybody speaks in very melodic nowadays. Even women aren't. Some women are very monotone, like Ben Stein, in recent times too. But I also used the Hartford sentences, so I would download a set of the sentences from the Hartford, and the sentence I practiced the most was the first one. The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. And I would try to get everything exactly the way it was. And then once I followed the spectrogram and realized that a lot of the women that were saying these sentences were going below 200 hertz, I didn't beat myself up as much, because I wanted to stay in between that range of 200 to 230. Hello, Deborah Rayback Sharp. I'm sorry, Raybuck. How are you doing today? And some of those sentences, the women dropped down to 175 hertz. Once I saw that in one of the sets, I didn't beat myself up as bad. That's just the way my voice sounded. I didn't like the way it sounded, but hey. So, what ended up happening is in 2012, I got a voice coach for one session, and it was the legendary Andrea James, the person responsible for all the modern awareness for trans people from 1996, actually before then, 1993, until now. I'm not saying there weren't other people, but she's pretty much the main one. If she were a video game, she would be Super Mario Brothers. That's how much of an impact she had on the whole thing. But she told me that I was pretty good. That I was further advanced than a lot of other people that she's spoken to. That I already had everything down. I just needed to relax more and just, enjoy my voice. I'm getting better with liking the sound of it, but I still don't like the sound of it because it sounds too androgynous to me. But, nothing that I can really do. My father had no clue what I was doing in here the entire time. I know he would be dead set against it, but I'm gonna save his part until later. So in 2013 is when I got the job at Baltimore Gas and Electric, which I stated earlier. And I didn't really do much. I didn't really start coming out to people until I was in billing training in 2014. Once I did that and I emailed a few people, no one said anything. But I started to use my female voice just because, even though I was so called by my male name at the time, I started using it with people that I knew kind of well. I didn't really care anymore. I wanted to be free, and I didn't care how I got it. Then I started wearing women's slacks to work. It wasn't anything fancy. They were just plain black pants. They could have passed for men's pants too. It was slack pants, so how different are they going to look? And then once I saw that, once I, practiced my voice more and more, even when I wasn't practicing it there at work on calls, obviously I didn't do it on the call at all. But once the customer started asking me if I was male or female, that's when I decided, hey, I gotta start making the transition. I started hormones in late March 2014. I talked to my previous doctor in January about what to do. He told me to go down to Chase Brexton, so there I went. I had a heck of a time starting hormones, for one, because my insurance didn't accept LabCorp, and they were only using LabCorp at the time, so they had to change out the codes for all these different tests I had to get done before I started hormones. The first time I went, they couldn't finish one test. They couldn't do the prolactin test, and I got mad. I had to wait a week for everything to occur, which really made me angry. I waited long enough just to get this far. 10 years to get this far, even beyond that. And I was really upset. And the hormones, didn't start right away. I felt them as far as like the burning sensations and everything, but it takes a while for everything to come forth. And I'll go into hormones a bit later, the more detailed aspect of hormones towards the end of my story, and just as a general thing, because it's easier to do that way. But I went on hormones, and by June of 2015, I knew I had to do something. I wanted to legally change my name and get everything done. I talked to my supervisor, and they said that they couldn't do anything about anything until, I officially changed my name, so on and so forth. Because people that didn't know me started to refer to me as a woman, despite only being on hormones for about a year, which is still not enough to really do anything sometimes. And it was pretty crazy. So I took off from work, lied to my father. Somebody else took me down to the courthouse. I filled out the name change papers, put everything down, and then I had to tell my father. My father flipped out. He was like, "Yo, you're going to ruin your life. You're going to ruin everything. You're going to blah, 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 blah. You could get fired from your job, XYZ. Why are you going to do all this stuff to me after all I did for you," kind of thing. "You're too smart for this. You went to college and you're educated. Why are you transitioning? That's stupid and it's a farce." Although before I get into that whole thing, I should say that Uncle Ben came down on my birthday in 2014, gave me a TV for a birthday present. I decided at this point that there's no point in using my male voice at home. He wasn't a big fan either. And then when he left, he told me, "Oh, say goodbye to me in a male's voice." And then that was pretty much the last conversation he and I ever had, because I wouldn't do it. So that was the end of our relationship. Not that we had a deep one anyway. I saw him once a year and that was it. The other part of the family didn't take it too well either, but then again, I had nothing to lose. I saw Aunt Mary and everybody else once a year, if that. Maybe once every year and a half to 2 years. But I got denied the first time for my name change due to crappy handwriting. That was dumb. I eventually went back down there, and somebody in the office, against their better judgment, I guess, or they weren't really supposed to, but they helped me write everything. And so I got the paperwork filled out, put everything out in the paper, and then I got my name changed. And the judge finally signed it because of the good handwriting, which baffles me because the press could read my handwriting just fine. Because you have to put it out there in the press saying that your name's going to be changed, and so that people can object to it if necessary. No one object to my name being changed. The only thing I had to wait for was that as of October 1st, 2015, the law in Maryland changed to where it can be easier to get your birth certificate changed as far as gender markers concerned. Before October 1st, 2015, you needed to have a missex change in order to have your gender marker changed. After October 1st, that was not the case. And so I had my doctor, actually I went down there, because I was going through pneumonia at the time, because October 2015 is when I was going through all this, all these sicknesses, all these issues with my teeth and coughing and everything else, like I was saying in an earlier video. It was just insane. I went down there. They told me I needed to have a doctor fill out some paperwork, even though the rules really weren't coherent. Somebody there at the office called up my doctor. Luckily, she was available at the time. She said give me the go-ahead, and therefore I got my birth certificate changed with the right gender marker. My name was officially changed on July 31st, 2015. And the Social Security office gave me hell to get my gender marker changed on my documents. And so I let it go for a long time. Thank you so much, Deborah. I really appreciate it. And so, but even though I couldn't get the Social Security to agree with stuff, I got my name changed, obviously, because you needed to. And obviously for tax purposes as well. But it's just, I kind of let that go for a while. And then in 2016, I finally went to get my gender marker changed. I went all the way down to DC almost. I forget what I went to Tacoma Park is where I went. The company said I couldn't take off for that kind of stuff because there wasn't enough available time, so I got mad at that. Waited a month and was like, screw it, I'm going to take off sick and just go do it on a Friday anyway. Because I got tired of their crap at this point. This was after the whole storm duty fiasco, and I was tired of waiting around. They were never going to let me have off to go do this, and I did it. I paid lawyer flat rate to do everything to get the gender marker changed, and that took a year to do. And then recently, last year, I finally called up Social Security again and got my gender marker changed in regard to those documents. Interestingly enough, the Social Security card no longer says what gender you are. It doesn't even have your number on there anymore. It just has a code. For security reasons, obviously. So I went through all that work. I mean, it still is useful, and that's no doubt. But I went through all that work to have things changed around on things I can't even see. Funny times. But one of the biggest things ever is when I went out to J&P Pizza in April of 2015, and I tried to go to the men's bathroom because I thought I didn't pass that well. And then when I went out to the men's door, another guy was sitting there was like, "Whoa, you sure you have the right bathroom?" And that's when I knew I could be seen as a woman. I could be seen as who I was. Granted, I don't pass all the time. But hey, no one says anything. No one gives me any hassles. No one beats me up. I've never been dressed up or whatever. No one's ever, threatened me of any sort. So I guess I kind of have an androgynous look to me. Not that I try to on purpose. I just do because I just do right now. I also started hair removal back in 2015. April of 2015. No, with February or so. Did a couple of sessions, then my father got sick, so I stopped. And that's when I decided to start it up again rather recently, about a couple of months ago. And here's the thing with transition, because I've been being transsexual. Here's the difference between transgender and transsexual. Transgender is an umbrella term. It includes transsexuals, cross-dressers, drag queens, non-binary people, so on and so forth. So I think the term transgender is used too loosely these days. I've also been hearing about this transgender thing where it's cool to be trans now in school or in middle school or in high school, which I doubt is true. And that all sounds like crap to me. But here's my advice to people that are doing it for a trend. If you transition and you don't have gender dysphoria and you don't feel not congruent with yourself, you're going to screw your life up. That's how that's going to be. You're going to screw your life up. Hello, Liz Ramodio. Liz Ramodio. You're going to screw your life up if you're not certain. I'm not saying you have to be 100%, but try to be 100% as close as possible. Because hormones are no joke. You may not be able to see the difference right away, but right when you start taking the hormones, whether it's pill format or injections or patches, it's going to change you right off the bat. A week after I started hormones, even before then, my nipples started burning like crazy. That's how that goes. There might not have been a physical difference, but it sure was there. If you're male to female, your voice won't change. You're going to have to work on it if you want it. If you're female to male, yes, your voice will change. Testosterone thickens the vocal cords. That's what happens. So you don't have to do anything with your voice. But you can expect acne in places where you never had it before, having extremely oily skin, possibly. Your breasts might atrophy. With the male-female side, your skin may get softer. You may lose muscle mass. I never did. The acne won't be as prevalent. Some people can report being more calmer, although I question that too. I never changed. My emotional states never changed. And once you start taking the hormones, that's it. You can't really go back to the way you were before. Maybe you can if you're super early, but it'll never be the same. I mean, I'm a unique story to where, for whatever reason, I became immune to the hormones, and I haven't changed one bit despite my hormone levels being of male range again. But as long as I look the way that I do, and haven't changed physically, I really don't care. If you want to have children and you're male to female, put your sperm in a sperm bank, because you can't do it anymore once the hormones really take root. That's one thing I gave up. I never had sex before. Didn't really, plan on having children. So now if I ever want children, guess what? I can never have any of my own biologically. Even though I don't feel bad about it now, 20 years from now I might feel bad about that. 10 years from now I might feel bad about that. Who knows? Life changes as things go along. So basically, I took a bet saying I'm never going to want to have kids for the next 60 years. I plan on living until about 95, so if I ever do desire kids biologically, guess what? I can't have them. Because my sexual organ is done for. It's out. It's out of here. If you're transitioning just to change your life because you don't like your drunk uncle, or you think people are going to like you better because you're trans, guess what? Sad to say, you're out of here. Not trying to bash you, but you're out. That's not a reason to transition. You transition for you, not for anybody else, not the people that like you better. Your drunk uncle will still be your drunk uncle. The job you hate is still going to be the job you hate. There could be violence against you, possibly. Not that that ever was against me, but I'm just saying that that could be a possibility. I'm not trying to scare you by any stretch. And I know during these times, I shouldn't be really saying stuff like that, but it's true. I was lucky enough to be small, to where my Adam's apple and everything else was smaller too. So I didn't need to get facial feminization surgery. People always talk about the surgery being SRS, sexual reassignment surgery, but there's other surgeries that you can opt in for. Some people may feel that they need them because they're 6'2" and their Adam's apples are huge. I look out to where I can be perceived as male or female, so no one sees me as trans, I guess. Or at least they don't let on so. It could be that people are just more accepting nowadays, which is true, but I've never gotten a funny look that I can tell based on my trans status. So I'm very fortunate. Another very unfortunate thing too. And this is even before all the riot stuff. African American trans people tend to have it more rough than other people that are transsexual. Again, I'm not trying to say anything bad or negative on purpose or spread hate. But I used to see plenty of articles in the trans groups that I was in back in 2013, 2014 about there being 24 deaths of African Americans that were trans within the first quarter of that year. Again, that's horrific and tragic. But when you put yourself out there and you transition, these are the things that you might have to deal with. I'll say it one more time, I looked out like no other. And I didn't have a lot of problems. Depending upon which state you live in, depends upon the rules regarding transition. Again, I lived in Maryland where the laws were changing. The hardest thing I had to do was get my ID changed with the DMV. Because their rules were dated back to, February of 2000. So I had to write a letter. I had to have my doctor write a letter. I had to have a psychologist write a letter to get my ID changed. So on and so forth. So make sure that this is what you want. It's not going to be, I transitioned in a year and I did this thing. I see a lot of the stores on YouTube. And I know that that's not really a credible source. But a lot of the detransition stories are female to male. And I just don't know why the female to male population has this whole detransition rate. Why are females, transitioning and then finding out that they are female and then transitioning back? What's going on that front? Do you know how hard their life's going to be? Honestly, like I said, when you're female to male, your voice will change when you take hormones. Testosterone thickens the vocal cords. So there are people that present as female, that, their biological gender again, but they sound like a dude. I mean, yes, they probably could train up their voice again, which would be interesting to see how well that would match up to before they transitioned. That would just be interesting just for that sake. But I'm saying you're effing yourself up. And I'm not going to believe that it's some kind of agenda thing. And here's why. Because nobody wants an army of transsexuals. You're not going to profit off of anything. The only people that stand to profit off of people being trans is surgeons or our surgeons and the hair removal companies. That's who can profit off of trans people. Nobody is going to make an army of transsexuals. There's no agenda for that because guess what? Transition costs a lot of money. And I'm on the cheap end because I didn't have to get any surgeries. Hair removal isn't cheap the majority of the time if you want quality. Name changes aren't cheap. Granted, it was on my end, it was only about $70. But I know Florida, for example, costs about $3,000 right now. Not that I know every state. And most states won't change your gender marker on your birth certificate until after you have the SRS. Again, I lucked out hardcore. And I'm sure that those are varying costs depending upon which state you live in. If you're going to do it, be sure that this is what you want, not what anybody else wants, not because you want your life to be different. Everybody doesn't like things about their life, their body, and things like that. Make sure that gender dysphoria is what you're, suffering from. Not body dysmorphia, not that you can't have multiple things at one time. But I'm telling you now, don't transition unless it's what you want. I'm not going to be one of those people saying, don't transition unless it's your final option, because I don't believe that either. I think you can, if transition is your best, if your best self is through transition, then by all means do it. When I was going in forums back in 2008, 2009, up on Susan's playground, guess what? Some people laughed at me and they were like, oh, if you didn't feel trans when you were a kid, guess what? You're shit out of luck. You're not really trans, which only added to my confusion. That's what happened to me. So I don't know when this transgender movement started because nobody was supportive. Even the trans community sometimes wasn't supportive. And that's sometimes why I pulled away from the community. Not that I'm really in it too much anymore. Because I understand how gender dysphoria can make people depressed, but you can get people that, push through obstacles and, are the best example of people that, of people in general. And then you have those who have been sitting there suffering for 10, 15 years and don't do anything. They can't go out of the house because of how they're perceived. Because they still look male or sound male and they can't get out of the house because they don't want to be seen that way. I guess luckily my dysphoria was still bad, but it wasn't that bad to where I didn't care. I still went out of the house and did things and moved on with my life to a degree, even if it was slow. If you're suffering from gender dysphoria, guess what? If transition is for you, do it. But you're going to have to wait, especially if you're male to female. Guess what? The hormones take a while for estrogen to work. For me, female to male, testosterone is a lot stronger. Not that I'm trying to play on the stereotype, men are stronger than women, but let's face it, testosterone will change you a lot faster than estrogen will. That's just a fact of life. It'll start changing you rather quickly. So, be sure that you want this. I was sure that I didn't want to have sex with anybody else or didn't want children. And so now if I ever do want children, guess what? I'm going to have to either adopt or do something else entirely. I don't even know what else I would do. But guess what? As far as having children biologically, I'm out. As far as having sex in the natural way, I guess I could still have that sort of, kind of. But guess what? It's gone. I'm out. Only do it if it's what you really want. And that goes quadruple 10 times. We all say that do it if it's what you really want, but I mean, seriously, take a while and really not just think about it, but feel about it too. Is this really what you want? These are the risks. This is what it goes down to. And that's that. If you transition and then decide, oh, hey, it wasn't for me, and after all, it was just because I was a teenager, or it was just because of the friends I was hanging out with, guess what? You're screwed. Again, not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but that's how it is. Once you take hormones, you're going past the point of no return. Sure, you could maybe return to your old self, sort of. But okay, I'll give you a video to watch. Go watch a video by Maritza Cummings. She was a female to male transsexual, and she used to go by the name of Mark Cummings for about 15, 20 years. She kind of has gone into religion and is now against people transitioning, but still, you tell me that she can return to who she was beforehand. Watch one of her videos and you tell me that she can't. In some form, she'll be male in a sense forever. And no, I'm not trying to state anti-stuff. I'm just saying, when you've been on hormones for that long, or even for as long as I have been, 6 years, guess what? There's no return. There's no going back. Even after the first year in some degree, even if the changes might not be apparent, there's no going back. Once you start, that's it. You can never repair the quote-unquote damage the hormones will do to you if you're not trans. I took a huge risk. I didn't get fired from BGE. Not because I was trans anyway. I took a lot of risks to be who I was. And everything worked out. Just like I'm taking a lot of risks now being who I am. Being, a psychic medium, numerologist, so on and so forth. That's just who I am as a person now. I'll talk about my spiritual awakening more on Saturday. If anybody's suffering from gender dysphoria or thinks they are, or if anybody knows anybody that's suffering from gender dysphoria, contact me, message me, let's talk about it. No, I'm not trying to advertise, but still, I'm just saying let's talk about it. If you're a male to female transsexual and you need help with the voice, let's talk about it. I lucked out again when I didn't have to tuck myself. Tucking oneself is when a male to female transsexual has to push their private parts, their testicles, inside their cavity so that they can wear clothes the right way. I'm super small, so I can wear jeans and I can wear women's everything without having to tuck myself, without having to push my parts into a cavity and then take tape and then tape it down. I'm extremely fortunate beyond belief. I can't believe how fortunate I was with the whole transition. Even after when it was okay or more accepted to transition, after Leila Alcorn died because her parents were dead set against it due to their Christian ways. Or their specific Christian ways, I should say. Oh yeah, before I was going to say that's my story, but I forgot to talk about my father. My father, was dead set against it. He would hassle me all the time. He didn't talk to me. When I started using my female voice, he didn't talk to me for 3 days straight. He also blamed me for not being able to see his nephew Patrick. He said, "Oh, it's because of you I can't see my grandson. Because the family over there doesn't want to be around you because of all this stuff." He also blamed me for going against society. He was like, "Oh, ever since you were a baby, you're going against society. I didn't have to take care of you. I could have dumped you because you were handicapped." That's what he told me. Basically saying he's sick of all my crap, he's sick of all my disability stuff, and now this thing. That's how that was. Granted, he didn't throw me out, luckily. He had no control anyway. He was on retirement and he couldn't pay the bills himself in the first place. But still. He was like, "Oh, you're always going against society and always going against the norms. Ever since you were a baby." So I got blamed for my disability. I got blamed for being trans. I got blamed for him not being able to see his grandson, even though it's not my fault, or it wasn't my fault. He threatened to take me to a doctor of his choosing, that had the belief that I shouldn't transition. Even though people, do that kind of stuff. And that's the one thing now with these people that I'm not going to say the conservatives or whatever, but the people that are anti-transition now, they want to go back to the old way of things and be the true transitioners. It's like, okay, people used to kill themselves because people didn't believe in this whole thing. Because they couldn't get anybody to believe them. People in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, in 2000s, killed themselves. Because, being trans is still not seen as a real thing sometimes. Oh, these people are mentally ill, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Like I said, if you're a transgender and you're just doing it to get attention, or just doing it to help change another aspect of your life, yes, they have it wrong. I'm sorry to say, but that's wrong. That's why I waited so long to make sure that I was certain that I wanted to transition before I did anything. Even though I waited too long and I, overthought things and overdid things again and again and again and again. But that's why I didn't do anything when I first felt these desires. But I'm me, and that's all I can be. And I take it, and I kept going away and coming back stronger every time, then that means that this is for me. That I'm right for this. Obviously, it's been 5 years since I've done most of the changes have occurred, and I had no desire to change back. So obviously, this was right for me. And not that dressing like a girly girl is an indication of who's a man and who's a woman. But let's face it, I look awesome in the more feminine clothing. Almost like it was built for me or that I was built for it. Not that that's an indicator per se, but hey, it's a boost. It's awesome. Not gonna lie. So yes, you may have to give up your job, you may have to give up your family, you may have to give up your friends to transition. That's what it may cost you. It didn't cost me that much because I didn't have a lot of those things to begin with. There wasn't a lot of family around. I didn't really have a whole lot of friends per se. And the laws changed in my favor back then in the state of Maryland. In order to transition, if you're a transsexual, you're going to have to give up everything, or potentially everything you've ever known. That's the cost of being who you are. That's not necessarily just transition either, that's just in life. Tomorrow is readings at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Saturday, I'll be telling this part of my story surrounding spiritual awakening. Thank you all for watching. Again, if you need help, if you know somebody that needs help, contact me. If you need help with a voice and you want just to be help with your voice in general, whether that's telling your story, whether that's going from using a male to a female voice in some way for someone, contact me. Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching this video. Keep pushing forward and stay epic.